Sup, chooms, how y'all living? Hope everything is Nova and everyone's having a preem week. So, even though hair loss sufferers are already blessed to have access to two very great clinically proven treatments in the form of finasteride and minoxidil, it is nevertheless exciting to see all the new future treatments currently in development. We've of course got the Kintor drugs such as pyrrolutamide, which is a powerful topical anti-androgen, and further down the road, we also have Kintor's own GT20029, which works to degrade the androgen receptor itself, which could very well be the most powerful long-term treatment for hair loss ever created. Of course, we also have the WNT Wnt pathway treatments as well, which work by targeting the downstream effects of DHT, which could make them viable alternatives for the few people who do not respond well to conventional therapies like 5-AR inhibitors, or at the very worst, they'll likely still be effective as adjunct treatments to conventional therapies. Now, I don't want to jump to any conclusions about any of these treatments in the pipeline, but I will say that overall I am very excited about these future innovations in hair loss therapies because the more options we have at our disposal, the more likely it is for hair loss to become a thing of the past. Of course, with these new innovations, there is going to be a lot of people involved in the development of these products making money, and rightfully so. After all, people who develop products that help people deserve to make money. Naturally though, there are also going to be people who don't have anything of value to offer who will want to cash in on this industry, especially considering that over 50% of men will experience some degree of hair loss over their lifetime. So it is a very common condition. So no matter how many good treatments come out, there are always going to be scammers and hairline fraud cells out there who will try to steer consumers away from legitimate conventional treatments by using fear and misinformation. After all, the existence of finasteride and minoxidil hasn't stopped snake oil salesmen from promoting placebo bullshit stuff like scalp massages and broccoli, so no matter how good hair loss treatments may become, there will still always be a market for scam products and services. Eventually though, these hairline fraud cells are going to have to modernize their scam marketing approach. One thing grifters figured out a long time ago though, is that you don't really need to sell a legitimate product. You just need to give it the veneer of legitimacy, and there are multiple ways to do this. One way is you can market your product as being developed by people with a scientific background, and you see this with products like Revivogen and Nutrafol, where you have people who seem like they're qualified promoted on TV and on the internet as well. Problem is, you can always find at least one qualified person who lacks enough integrity to promote a product that they know doesn't work if you pay them enough money, especially since the supplement industry, also known as big placebo, can be more profitable than the pharmaceutical industry. That is why you sometimes even see real medical doctors like Dr. Paul Saladino quit medicine to sell liver supplements and organ meats that he claims stop hair loss without any scientific evidence whatsoever. Doctors don't do this because they believe in it. On the contrary, they're probably laughing their way to the bank, but they do it because they're capitalizing off of people's fear and mistrust of pharmaceuticals while failing to disclose the fact that the supplement industry is a shady and poorly regulated industry that rakes in billions of dollars of cash per year by making false promises about bogus supplements that don't work. Another way you can add the veneer of legitimacy to a scam product is to also come up with an unpronounceable alphabet soup title that makes it look like some in-development scientific breakthrough that we all can get excited about. Furthermore, you can even publish some scientific papers about it. After all, there are hundreds, if not thousands of scientific journals out there, and you can even pay some of them to publish your research, even if it is based on extremely poor methodology and speculation. After all, if this guy can get a scientific paper published, then just about anybody probably can. You'll notice most of these treatments for hair loss and development don't actually have trade names yet. Rather, they have chemical names like KX826, GT20029, SM04554, CB0301, etc. And the reason why they go by these chemical names is because they are still being researched. And since they're not being marketed yet, there is no point for the companies researching them to come up with a trademark and commercial name for them. However, when we hear these chemical names, we immediately tend to take interest because while any asshole can put a bunch of vitamins in a pill and market it as a hair loss supplement. It takes a tremendous amount of scientific research to actually properly develop and then validate a new compound that could potentially treat hair loss. So whenever we hear about some new compound that doesn't have a proper name yet, but rather a bunch of letters and numbers, the hair loss community tends to take notice. And that brings us to today's subject, ALRV5XR. Wow, that sounds really cool, doesn't it? That sounds like some sort of cutting-edge new project, maybe some sort of new Wnt pathway inhibitor. Perhaps it's a really strong topical anti-androgen, or maybe it's some revolutionary new approach towards stopping hair loss altogether. Well, until one of my viewers brought it up, I wasn't even sure what ALRV5XR was. Initially, I was excited because, like I said, the name makes it sound like one of those new treatments that target the Wnt pathway like SM04554, or maybe some novel anti-androgen like GT20029. So I knew I had to look into this, and the first thing I found was this article here, and the title is, quote, "Safety and Efficacy of ALRV5XR in Men with Androgenic Alopecia, a randomized double-blinded placebo-controlled trial," unquote. Wow, they even say androgenetic alopecia, so it turns out that's how you say androgenic alopecia in Canadian. So the article starts out with a pretty interesting introduction by talking about the different mechanisms of alopecia. With regard to androgenic alopecia specifically, the authors lay out what happens in androgenic alopecia, which is when the hair follicle spends more time in the telogen resting phase and less time in the anagen growth phase. There is also increased time between the end of the telogen resting phase and the beginning of the next anagen growth phase. What's called terminal hairs, which are nice, thick, and strong normal hairs, are replaced by vellus hairs, which are wispy, short, miniaturized hairs. Eventually, the hair follicles get smaller and smaller and then are deleted. Well, that's great. We know the researchers looked up the definition of androgenic alopecia on Wikipedia, but what they haven't mentioned yet is how their drug seeks to alleviate any of this. So let's go ahead and continue. The researchers then mentioned that the Wnt pathway is depressed in androgenic alopecia and that the Wnt pathway is essential for the normal growth of hairs. So cool. Maybe ALR55XR is some revolutionary new Wnt pathway stimulator, and that's exciting to me because I've already gone over the important role the Wnt pathway plays in promoting hair growth in my videos on other products that target the Wnt pathway, so I am genuinely excited to see how this one compares. So, the researchers don't spend much time talking about the trash hormone DHT, but if we're talking about the Wnt pathway, that's actually okay, because we know from tons of other research that it is DHT that suppresses the Wnt pathway. So even if ALRV5XR doesn't directly inhibit DHT, it may still be effective by targeting the downstream effects of DHT, as we've seen from other Wnt pathway targeting treatments that seem to work, even though it is DHT that plays the central role in the progression of androgenic alopecia. So let's see what kind of connection the researchers can establish with the Wnt pathway and ALRV5XR. So far, they haven't actually quoted any basic research yet on their drug or even what it is, but since they're bringing up things like the Wnt pathway, then surely it has to have some relevance as towards why ALRV5XR works, right? Well, so far, it just sounds like I'm reading a review article on androgenic alopecia rather than a drug study, but I am already a hair loss witcher, so I don't need a review. I just want to know how this treatment is supposed to work for us. So, okay. Here we finally get to hear what ALRV5XR actually is. Bear with me though, because this part is definitely worth reading in full.
Aiming to restore normal hair follicle homeostasis, ALRV5XR was designed to target various of the multiple underlying physiological causes of hair loss. The agent is a formulation of standardized botanical extracts, vitamins, and minerals that can be delivered both systemically as a supplement or topically as a shampoo, conditioner, or follicle serum. ALRV5XR is intended to support normal biochemical signaling, thereby contributing to normal hair follicle physiology. ALRV5XR aims to induce neogen in involuted hair follicles and prolong anagen of hair follicles. This combination of action should aid to regenerate the normal scalp hair phenotype.
Unquote. Wow, what a bunch of utter broccoli. This sounds more like some magic formula I could buy from Dr. Mercola's website than an actual research chemical. I can't even find the ingredients in the paper, but when I hear words like botanical extracts, vitamins, and minerals in a study that is supposed to be about a new hair loss treatment, that is a bit of a red flag. So what is in this crap? Alright, here it is.
The ALRV5XR treatment contained botanical extracts, vitamins, and minerals as listed in Table S2 of the supplementary materials, unquote.
So the researchers have so much confidence in their product that they don't even bother listing them in the research paper. So now I have to go ahead and download another PDF file and look up whatever Table S2 is and find out what the hell is actually in this product. Okay, well here we finally have it. The elusive ingredients of ALRV5XR, and there are way too many lists here, so I'll just go ahead and show a screenshot of the ingredients. Wow, would you look at all that garbage? Holy shit. It's like the researchers took every fringe treatment for hair loss imaginable that has ever been marketed and then decided to combine them into one super fringe treatment. The only thing lacking in this treatment is broccoli and the spice melange. So what we're looking at here is nothing more than just another natural remedy where if you look up the ingredients, you're likely going to find at least one very poor quality study showing some theoretical mechanism that might link the said ingredient to hair loss, but this compound is completely ridiculous. This is like if somebody were to take everything on Dr. Oz's website and then put it all into a pill form. Even if one of these ingredients were to have some valid connection to hair loss, there is no way to determine if the quantity present in the formula is sufficient, and chances are it probably isn't, because let's face it, how much of this crap can you fit into a single serving size when you have a botanical encyclopedia's variety of ingredients? So let's return to the study and see what happens when you throw the kitchen sink of every new age woo hair loss treatment imaginable onto your scalp. Okay, so this was a 24-week randomized placebo-controlled study, which is a standard study design. There was a drug group, if you could even call this a drug, and also a placebo control group. The drug group took 842 milligrams twice a day of the ALRV5XR combination of every supplement known to man, as well as the special ALRV5XR shampoo, the ALRV5XR conditioner, and the ALRV5XR follicle serum. The control group got a placebo version of each of these treatments. So the investigators enrolled 46 subjects. The candidates were 18 to 64 years old men with either androgenic alopecia or telogen effluvium, but they ended up only finding and enrolling men with androgenic alopecia, so yet another blow to the theory that telogen effluvium is the most common cause of hair loss. Anyways, the study lasted 24 weeks, and the endpoints were hair counts using a phototrichogram as well as global photographs to assess overall improvement in hair growth. So like I said, this is a pretty standard study design. So let's go ahead and move on to the results. And unfortunately, Houston, we've got a problem here. Here's a section on the role of the funding source. No big surprise, Arbor Life Labs, the makers of ALRV5XR, funded the study. Here's what the paper says about the role of Arbor Labs in the study, though. Quote, the funder of the study had no role in the recruitment of subjects or data collection. The funder had a role in the study design, data analysis, and interpretation, as well as writing the report, unquote. So in other words, the funder of the study didn't select the subjects or collect the data, but they sure as hell had control over every other part of the paper, including writing it up. Most drug company funded studies actually go out of their way to show they had no role in biasing study results, but not these guys. They seem to wear it like a badge of honor, almost like they expect their consumers to be too stupid to see the obvious conflict of interest. Nevertheless, it goes without saying that we'll have to take the study with a much bigger than usual grain of salt. So, moving on to the results, the investigators enrolled 46 men with androgenic alopecia, but due to dropouts, incomplete data, and probably people getting tired of swallowing a horse pill twice a day, as well as applying 3 different substances to their hair on a daily basis, they only ended up with a total of 11 subjects in each limb of the study that had interpretable phototrichogram results. Here's one of them. On the left, we see 3 views of his baseline hair before entering the study. On the right, we see phototrichograms with computer enhancement throughout the study. Unfortunately, for some reason, they don't show the same guy's overall hair at the end of the study, and I wonder why. I suspect it's probably because it didn't look any different. Supposedly, the phototrichograms show that he gained 48 terminal hairs per square centimeter over the course of the study, though it also looked like he gained 7 vellus hairs per per square centimeter. Supposedly, these phototrichograms show an overall gain of 55 hairs per square centimeter. It does look to me like there is some increased hair, but I'm starting to wonder if the Arbor Labs CEO is the one doing the hair counts here. Anyways, this huge table here shows all the results. What they found was that terminal hair counts increased in the drug group compared to the placebo group by 21 hairs per square centimeter. Vell's hair counts decreased by 10.5 hairs per square centimeter, and the total hair density increased by 13.4 hairs per square centimeter. 100% of the drug group had increased terminal hair counts versus 18% of the placebo group. Here are some of the numbers presented in graph form. So, we move on to the discussion section of the paper, and here's where we start seeing some evidence of the drug company meddling with the text. For example, the article says, quote, "In addition to statistically significant improvements in terminal hair density, ALRV5XR's effect on vellus hair at 24 weeks was remarkable," unquote. The results were remarkable? Sorry, but no neutral scientist would describe these results as remarkable. Language like that is indicative of bias and not an objective analysis of the data an actual researcher would apply, and it is stuff like this that leads me to believe that this is more marketing than it is research. The researchers then look at previous studies on minoxidil and finasteride and say, quote,
"The current results suggest that terminal hair regrowth to more than 40 terminal hairs per square centimeter over 48 weeks may be possible. This would be a 2.8 to 3.6-fold efficacy improvement of ALRV5XR over standard therapies," unquote.
And, quote,
"The efficacy of ALRV5XR reported in this study displays clear superiority over these results,"
unquote. Come on, are you seriously suggesting that your tiny subject of 22 subjects somehow proves that your nonsense treatment is better than drugs that have been studied on thousands of subjects over the course of decades? Come on, man! Next quote, quote,
"Furthermore, ALR5XR treatment has a clearly improved safety profile when compared to standard therapies, which have been etiologically associated with a range of miscellaneous adverse effects," unquote.
Well, sure, if you have a study that consists of only 22 subjects, there is a good chance you'll report no side effects. If finasteride's research had only 22 subjects, it probably would have reported 0 side effects as well. You can't take a study of 22 people and compare it to a drug that has thousands of people and then declare it is safer because nobody had side effects. Measuring side effects requires even more subjects than testing for efficacy, and the fact that they made such an extravagant claim is further evidence that what we're looking at here is not really a study, it's an advertisement. This tiny, miserable failure of a study absolutely does not prove that ALRV5XR is totally safe, nor does it prove that it is safer than minoxidil and finasteride. Any researcher would know this, so the fact that they made such a declaration based on such a small sample size is proof that the people doing the research are the people selling the product. Okay, one more quote here. Quote,
"ALRV5XR, while in accord with the combination approach, focuses on multi-molecular targeting designed to directly or indirectly modulate various of the known pathways involved in healthy hair follicle biology. Results of its use suggest a synergistic effect that leads to a superior outcome," unquote.
Okay, that's enough of that crap. I think you guys get the point. The study and this company are not at all trustworthy. I wouldn't trust my hair to this product any more than I'd trust Jared Fogle to babysit my kids. You'd think it couldn't get any worse than this, but let's close out the study with yet another conflict of interest statement. Quote,
"Declaration of Competing Interests. PRF, one of the study authors, is the director of Arbor Life Labs. PRF, DJC, and DB are co-investors of patent-pending PCT blah 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 titled botanicals as Wnt beta-catenin activators, molecular pathway regulators, tissue regenerators, and health biomarker regulators, filed for ALRV5XR and have a share in Arbor Life Labs. PRF, KMF, CP, BMM, DJC, and JG, all authors of the study, received honoraria, which means money, from Arbor Life Labs and proposed submission for publication. DJC is an employee of Arbor Life Labs," unquote. So,
I'm sorry, I'm not at all impressed by this study. I'm reluctant to even call it a study, as it's much more of a promotional ad than actual scientific research. This ALRV5XR stuff seems like what you'd get if you took a kid's chemistry set and mixed everything in it together and then paid a couple of scientists to say it works. Arbor Life Labs, despite claiming their product is a drug, is actually just a worthless supplement, and as such, they don't have to get FDA approval for this junk because it is all vitamins and minerals and bizarre botanical supplements as well that don't require FDA approval. It's like what you'd get if you took the supplement section at Whole Foods and put it all into a blender. But some of you might be saying anyways,
But Kevin, the results are good, so shouldn't that be all that matters?
no, I don't trust the results. When you start out with just 46 subjects and throw out over half of them, and when the drug company is obviously pulling the strings in the study, there is a good chance that they threw out subjects that weren't responding to treatment in order to make the drug look better than it actually is. If you massage the data like that, you can end up with statistically significant results in a subgroup of subjects that are not at all justified if you hadn't excluded so many subjects. So I'm not buying these results, not at all. This was a tiny study written from the point of view of clear-cut bias. There is no real theory behind the treatment other than maybe it stimulates some pathway good for hair growth, although they don't provide any evidence for this whatsoever. The claims that it is better than finasteride or minoxidil are totally unjustified and scamful. Finasteride and minoxidil have been studied for many years in numerous studies with hundreds or thousands of subjects, and yet they expect us to believe that this ALRV5XR crap is better than those very effective therapies based on a study in which the results are based on just 11 men who received the substance? We're supposed to believe the stuff is safer than standard therapies based on the fact that 11 men didn't get side effects? How dumb and desperate do these supplement companies think we really are? And that's what this ALRV5XR stuff is. It's nothing more than a supplement that wants to have the aesthetics of a legitimate pharmaceutical. That way, they can give consumers the appearance of a pharmaceutical without having to deal with the burden of FDA approval, since supplements are only very loosely regulated in the United States of America. Basically, ARV5XR is the hair loss equivalent to Enzyte. Yeah, remember those obnoxious fucking commercials from the 2000s with Smiling Bob and with all the innuendo implying that taking Enzyte made his dick bigger? Well, it's a similar deal here, except it's for hair loss. Enzyte had a name that sounded like a drug, and similarly, as it turns out, ALRV5XR also has a trade name. It's called Replinology, and it made a bunch of claims not backed up by science, but since Enzyte was just an herbal supplement, it didn't require FDA approval either. Nevertheless, the founder of the company behind it was eventually convicted of fraud and sentenced to prison, which is why television viewers today are no longer being terrorized by Smiling Bob. Just like Enzyte, though, I suspect it is only a matter of time before we start seeing late-night infomercials for Replinology, and who knows, they may even be able to afford to hire a few actors to put on lab coats and stethoscopes to make it seem like a legitimate product. Just like Enzyte, though, ALRV5XR or Replinology is a complete scam. Hopefully the finished product never sees the light of day, but in case it does, well, at least you've seen this video now and know not to waste your time or your money. Good night, chooms, and God bless.